Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us. Today, we have a very short but hopefully informative webinar to prepare you as much as we can for your first summer at camp. We'll be talking to you for around 20 to 25 minutes, and we've allocated an additional 10 minutes at the end of the webinar for questions. So if you do have any questions throughout, please send them in the chat and just select send to everyone, and we'll get to those as soon as we can. My name is Ben. Most of you will know me from your interview and the application process. I work for Inter-Exchange on the Camp USA team, and I'm based in the UK. My experience from camp mostly comes from my 2 summers spent working as a general counsellor at Camp Highlander, situated in Western North Carolina, which is a gorgeous place on the East Coast. Cool. So today we have an expert guest in Christian, our program director. Christian brings a wealth of knowledge and experience about summer camps and life at camp as a whole. And moderating today's webinar in the comments is Julia, our program manager, also with great knowledge and expertise. So our goal today is to kind of, prepare you guys for camp a little bit, to give you guys an idea about what camp might be like. So how's it going, Christian?
Good. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. I'll take any opportunity I can to talk about camp.
Cool. Thanks for coming. Cool. So do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your experience working in the summer camp industry?
Sure. I spent 5 wonderful summers at a camp in Maine. My first summer, I was 22 years old, had freshly graduated college, and I thought I would go do a summer at camp and do one, and that would be that. And I would never think about camp again. But that's not how it worked out. I ended up going back for a second summer, a third summer, a fourth summer, and a fifth summer. And here I am today, still talking about camp and still loving it just as much as I did on my first day.
Yeah, you caught the bug. So what was it about camp that really got you hooked? Like, why have you stuck around?
The people. Some of my best friends in my life to this day, I met at camp. The people, the campers. I mean, it's a deep, meaningful experience. I mean, not only is working in a beautiful part of the country a lot of fun, working with kids is fun. I was a sailing instructor. That was a lot of fun. Fun is fun, but deep, meaningful friendships is something extremely rewarding. And I think that's what kept me coming back every year and what kind of keeps me hooked today.
Love that. Yeah, same for me. Like, for me, the best thing about camp was the people that I've met. I've got a bunch of friends on the East Coast now, which I can go and visit whenever. Got some friends from camp coming across to visit in August for a week. So that's going to be good. But yeah, the connections you make, amazing. It's just a great experience.
So my first summer at camp, some of my best friends were from New Zealand. And after camp, they convinced me to move to New Zealand for a year. So that was also part of the experience of meeting people from around the world, going to visit them, seeing what their day-to-day lives were like. And like I said, it was just kind of a transformative experience for me.
I love that. Love that. So how big was the summer camp that you worked at?
When I first got there, I didn't think it didn't seem big to me. It actually seemed small coming from like a large university. I was like, oh, what a small little community. This is great. But now that I've been working with camps for so many years, I realized that the camp I worked at was on the larger side. We probably had 400 campers and 200 staff, which now with a little bit more knowledge, I realize that's a pretty big camp. I'd say an average camp is around 200 campers. But it definitely didn't feel that way. It still felt very much like a small community that I was a part of.
That's cool. So did you guys have like a big presence of like international counselors?
We did. I'd say probably a quarter of the staff was international. If we had 200 counselors, at least 50 of them were international, from all over the world. So like Australia, New Zealand was really big when I was at camp. The UK has obviously been a huge part of the program for a long time. But yeah, there was probably a good 50 internationals in my camp.
Love that. Love that. So my camp was probably on the medium side. We probably had around maybe 100 staff overall with about 10 or so international counselors. It was very fun, like for me to try and integrate with the Americans, the kids and the staff as well. It was just a lot of fun, sharing my stories from home. I learned a bunch of things about, their lives as well and their families and just how they live. It's just a lot of fun. It's just a really good time.
Did you ever get tired of people giggling at you when you said jumper or rubbish or trainers or anything
You
like
kind of
that?
get used to it after a while. Like there's a lot of Americanisms that I've picked up that I kind of even use now at home, and like
Yeah.
my friends like make fun of me for it. I'll be going out for a beer and I'll call petrol gas, like a gas station, and they'll look at me like, it's just kind of like ingrained in me now, like accidentally kind of thing.
Cultural
Cool.
exchange.
Yeah, it's good. So as we know, so camp is great, but the days can be long. Sometimes it's hard work, and it can, on occasion, take it out of you a little bit. So, in terms of challenges that you've faced at camp, so what challenges did you face, and how did you overcome these challenges?
Man, there were small challenges, and then there were some big challenges. I'd say the biggest one is exhaustion. Um, a day at camp is really long. I mean, the kids will wake up earlier than they're supposed to sometimes, and when they're up, you're up, and then you're running around with them all day. Get a couple hours off here and there, then it's lights out, and once the lights are out, you usually get some time off, but you might want to spend that time with your friends and stay up a little late. And, you do that 6, 7 days a week, and you wake up in July and you're like, man, I'm just exhausted. I'm just exhausted. So that is a challenge. And, what got me through that is, knowing how short the experience really is. You'll be exhausted, but then when you just kind of sit down and think about it, you're like, you know what, this is 9 weeks of my life. This is, it's really not that long of a time. And I can get through this. I can do it. And I'll regret it more if I don't finish strong. So that's really what kept me motivated. And, your friends, like, you don't want to let your co-counselors down. My co-counselors in my cabin were some of my best friends, and I couldn't just phone it in that day, because if I did, they had to pick up my slack. So I think that kind of team bonding and knowing that I couldn't let my friends down is what helped me through that exhaustion. But you will be exhausted. It will happen. It will be challenging. And like I said, then there's those micro challenges of maybe there's a camper that you just can't seem to connect with, or is just constantly making trouble. That'll happen. But kids are kids, and those challenges come and go.
Yeah, you tend to learn a lot about, how to be a great counselor early on, especially how to deal with, very difficult situations. Sometimes it's best for those difficult situations to happen right at the start of the summer, so you can learn from that and be a better counselor throughout. But yeah, so you get the good cabins, you get the bad cabins, luck of the draw, but obviously make the most of it and you'll have a fantastic time. So how did camp prepare you, Christian, for your time as a counselor? Was like any training involved at the start of summer?
Yeah, I'll admit I was extremely unprepared when I got there on day one. Going to camp was a spontaneous decision that I did not know what I was getting into. But once I got to camp, there was just this incredible network of support from returning counselors who have been like, hey, man, I've been here before. I know you're overwhelmed. I know you're meeting a lot of new people. I know this is intimidating. So, returners really helped me feel comfortable and kind of teach me some things about camp. And then in addition to that, there was just a great network of leadership that was providing some formal training from, how to deal with a difficult camper, how to deal with homesickness, what to do in an emergency, and then some informal training of, how to clean your cabin, how to deal with a camper. But yeah, there was a whole week of staff orientation where, it's half training and it's also half bonding. it's a really fun week. You'll do some silly things and you'll meet a lot of fun people. But you should look forward to staff orientation. There's a lot of boring meetings, but there's also a lot of fun too.
Sweet. That's awesome. So can you tell us how time off works? Because days off are needed. Obviously, camp is exhausting at times. So how much time off could like international staff or staff as a whole expect?
Yeah, so like working at a camp doesn't necessarily work the same as like a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. So, at my camp, and a lot of camps will have a similar structure. They don't have Mondays and Tuesdays. They'll have like A day and then B day and then A day and then B day. And then they'll have like a special day. And a lot of times on those special days is also half of the staff's day off. So around once a week, once every 7 or 8 days, you're going to get a day off. Usually you're off around dinner the night before, sometimes after dinner. And then you'll be off the whole next day and, need to be in by curfew. So you'll get around, 24 to 30 hours off every week or so. You also have like a rest hour during the day where you can maybe check some emails or connect with family. And obviously some time off at night as well once the kids are in bed. But it's few and far between. There's not a lot of time off. And yeah, spend it wisely. I mean, you kind of got to strike that balance of make the most of this experience and bond with your friends and spend as much time with them as you can. But also get some rest and take a night off every now and then and just go to bed. It'll go a long way.
Yeah, good sleep is key, guys. I always say make the most of your days off as well, but budget well. Like I think my main mistake from my first summer at camp is I probably spent about $100 per day off throughout the course of the summer. And that kind of probably equated to about half my summer salary. So I probably spent a good, maybe $800 off on days off over the summer, which I don't regret. I loved it. We had a fantastic time. But if you're, planning to travel after camp, just, try and be mindful about what you spend because it does catch up with you. Pennies make pounds. Just watch what you spend just so you can have a good few weeks travel after camp. So whilst we're on the topic of money, obviously camp is paid work. How can counsellors expect to be paid for the work at camp, Christian?
I'd say most common these days is like direct deposit onto like a payroll card. So you won't need a bank account or anything like that while you're in the US. Most camps these days, I can't speak for all of them, will do some sort of direct deposit. But they'll set up an account for you. They'll give you a prepaid Visa, MasterCard, and your paychecks will get deposited directly onto that card. And you could use it just like you would any bank card back home. Other camps will pay in cash and they'll pay you in the middle of the summer, at the end of the summer. Some camps will still write a good old fashioned check. Maybe they'll give you that check every 2 weeks, maybe every month. So, how frequently you get paid really depends on which camp you're working at and what method that payment comes in, whether it's direct deposit, check, or cash can also vary. But yeah, definitely for some specifics on that, ask your camp director. They'll let you know. They'll say, yeah, we pay every 2 weeks. You'll get a paycheck and you can cash it across the street. But yeah, I'd say, what to expect is probably a paycheck, 2 or 3 paychecks during the summer would probably be standard.
Awesome. Thank you. So what I would say is if you guys do get paid in cash, be careful with it. My first summer, I probably had about $1,700 in my back pocket, like traveling across America. You may go to some, very remote, weird places where it's going to be a bit edgy. So just if you can get it onto a card, it's safer. If you lose your card, you can try and get a new one. I would recommend if you guys have a Monzo account. I know you can't put your camp pay onto your Monzo, but if you have like some money with you to take with you to spend in the US on your Monzo card, because you can use that free anywhere, that's probably your safest way to go. Cool. And you also need to pay tax on your camp pay. So it's worth not forgetting about that. So Christian, can you tell us how paying tax works for international counselors?
Yeah. So anyone who works in the US pays taxes. It's just kind of the way our government funds itself. So when you're working at camp, most typically what's going to happen is the taxes you would pay will be automatically deducted from your paycheck. So you'll look at a paycheck and let's say it says, you worked 4 weeks for $450 and then $40 was taken out for or $40 was taken out for income tax and $60 was taken out for local taxes. So your paycheck actually only came out to like $392. You're basically prepaying your taxes. The taxes that you would owe at the end of the year, you're paying them now through a deduction from your paycheck. If you get a paycheck and there aren't any taxes deducted, it's not necessarily a good thing. It's not necessarily like, oh yay, like they didn't take taxes, I don't have to pay them. You'll just have to pay them at the end of the year. The IRS, you'll do your tax return and they'll say, you were supposed to pay $220 in taxes and you didn't. So now you need to pay us $220. So yeah, expect that. You'll see it in your paychecks that taxes are being taken out. And like I said, it's just for federal, state, and local income taxes. You will not pay any Social Security or Medicare taxes. So if you do get a paycheck and you see that there's a deduction for Social Security or Medicare, reach out to us or your supervisor.
Awesome. That's great advice. Thank you. Cool. On to an insurance question. So insurance is super important. Everyone gets a standard insurance plan as standard through Inter-Exchange. I believe we have a couple of different plans for counselors, Christian. Can you take us through the standard and the premium plans?
Yeah. So first I'll start out that it is not health insurance. Like that is a fairly specific term. This is what it's, really known as accident and sickness insurance. This insurance is to provide you coverage in the event that you get sick or you get injured. So it's not going to cover any pre-existing conditions. It's not going to cover dental or vision. It's really just going to cover you, and on a day off, you sprained your ankle. Well, you're covered for that. Or you're at camp and you caught the flu. You have coverage for that. And yeah, we have two plans. We have the basic plan and we have the premium plan. We strongly encourage the premium plan. It's a really good plan. For example, with the basic plan, if you want to go see a doctor to get some medication for the flu, you're going to pay $150 just for that one visit. If you had the premium plan, you'd only pay $25 for that visit. So if you need to use your insurance, the premium plan is going to be cheaper when you need to use it. It also covers some mental health issues, some lost baggage, just has some better coverage. You'll also get 4 months of it. So if that's something you're interested in, I'd encourage you to do your due diligence and ask us questions about the differences between the two plans. But at a minimum, you're going to have our basic plan while you're working at camp. And if you want to extend that or upgrade it, let us know.
Awesome. Sounds good. So once camp is over, Christian, obviously we have a 30-day period for people to travel. Let's say, for example, if an international counselor on a J1 wants to leave the US, so going to Mexico or to Canada is the two most popular things. If they want to leave the US and then re-enter during that 30-day period, how does that work?
We would not necessarily suggest that. So if you leave the US during your grace period, basically once you leave the country, they're like, okay, they're done with their J1 visa. It's over. They came, they left. J1's done. So if you need to get back into the US to catch a flight home, you're going to be dependent on a tourist visa. So keep that in mind. If you go to Canada or Mexico during your 30-day grace period, you're probably going to need a separate visa to get back in.
Cool. And what I would say on that is, so just based on personal mistakes a few years ago, I went to Vancouver in my grace period and had to re-enter to fly home from New York. You can't get the ESTA at the snap of a finger. It can take, an hour or two to come through. So just give that a good few hours or as long as you can before you re-enter the US in that period. Just so you're not scrambling around to get that ESTA to get back in the country.
For sure.
Cool. So before we open up the floor for some questions from our counselors, let's do a few kind of quick fire tips for everyone in the chat. So I'll start with mine. So my main bit of advice is to get enough sleep. Days can be long. It's a very active lifestyle. A lack of sleep will definitely catch up with you. After my first summer, it was when I got to Vancouver. I slept for like 18 hours straight, but I was up late all summer. Had a great time. Don't get me wrong, it was a fantastic summer, but just sleep well, and you'll really thank yourself for it. My second tip is to limit your screen time and just put your phone away. We had a culture at our camp called disconnect to connect, where it's basically, disconnecting from social media and the outside world to kind of connect with the kids and those around you. You'll really thank yourself for it. Like if I was to go back to camp now, I would probably put my phone away for probably at least 4 or 5 days at a time, because I just love that kind of experience at camp. It's going to help you to like immerse yourself in the camp environment just to get a good feel for it. And you can just really enhance your experience by doing that. My last tip is just make the effort to get to know the other counselors as much as you can. You're going to meet a lot of people at camp, and you'll likely make some very close friends whilst you're out there. So, if you make the efforts with some people, they'll appreciate it. You can meet more people through that. And camp will stay with you forever through the people that you meet. How about you, Christian? Any tips for the guys?
Yeah, I've got two. The first one is buy-in. And what I mean by buy-in is camp is a silly place, and camp is, steeped in tradition, and, it's for the kids. And similar to like watching a horror movie, the plot doesn't make any sense and this is all ridiculous. But if you just buy in and you're having a great time, the movie's amazing. And how much fun was that? Camp is that way. It's, you really need to buy into the culture and to, buy into that whole, I'm a part of a team, I'm a part of a community. Once you buy into that, you really, you do feel like you're a part of a community, and you do feel like that others are supporting you. And it also makes it more fun for everyone. Like a lot of these kids have been going to camp for years. So, you don't want to ruin the surprises for them or spoil the mystery that is camp. So yeah, really just buy into everything there and be a part of the team, and you'll definitely look back on that and be thankful that you did. And the other for me, which was kind of hand in hand with that fighting exhaustion, is focus on your campers. Like I still talk to my campers today. I had the oldest boys at camp, and I was like an uncle. They were all 13, 14 years old, so I didn't really play that like dad role, but like uncle role I did, and it was really cool. And that got me through the days. I know that for them it's a really, really, really special couple of weeks, and I wanted to make it that much more special, and that was extremely motivating for me.
Yeah, I love that. Completely agree. That's great advice. Awesome. Thank you, Christian. I think now we head to Julia to see if we have any questions waiting for us in the chat. Let me just get Julia. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, good. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Great. So yeah, I have a couple questions that were sent directly to me. The first is to do with bedding. So there's bedding on the packing list, but I don't really have room to bring sheets and blankets and pillows. What do I actually need to bring for that?
Good question. So
I'm gonna take this one. You
Yeah.
feel free to hop in. You might hear different opinions on this. Personally, I would say don't travel with bedding. I'm a big travel light person. It makes getting around the airport easier. It makes getting to and from the airport easier. I can't imagine spending a couple weeks after camp lugging around bedding. So even though it's an additional cost, I would strongly encourage you to visit the American Institution of Walmart and pick up a blanket or a pillow or anything you may need. I would not advise traveling with it. That would be my 2 cents.
To add on to that, I would say check in with your camp again too, because that might be a packing list when they're considering domestic staff. I know at my camp, we would provide, we had like a camp bedding stash, I guess, that we would provide international counselors with. But to Christian's point, yes, Walmart will be one of your first stops. So any necessities, like for me also, toiletries, like why lug a huge bottle of shampoo over if you can just go pick up a version of it at Walmart. So yeah, that would be my advice on that front too.
Cool. Awesome.
And then, okay, do you have any recommendations for US phone plans to avoid international charges?
Yeah. So do you want to take it, Christian, or
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
So I would just buy. So for me, I'm with EE, and I get all of my international calls, texts, and data included for like an extra £5 a month. So just check with your provider if that's something they can do as like a bolt-on. Always check it before you go, because you can get some astronomical charges if you aren't kind of organized with that. Outside of that, you can buy like a separate international SIM. I do have a link for one that we recommend. So if you shoot me a WhatsApp or shoot me an email, I can send you that link. I think it's probably around £20 to £30 a month, but I think peace of mind with that is really important. So it's probably worth the money if you can't get that from your provider. But good question.
Yeah, I'd say it's anywhere between contacting your provider and adding some international coverage. The SIM card we recommend. And as an immediate last case, like, again, you can go to Walmart and they'll sell you a cell phone and a SIM card, and you'll have an American phone number, and pretty simple.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Let's see. So outside of planning activities, what is staff orientation actually like?
It's like a reality show. Like I don't know how. So like there's these things called icebreakers. They're like bonding games that you might have played before, but really they're like you'll start your day at 9, and let's say you go have breakfast, and then at 10 o'clock they'll tell the lifeguards to go down to the lake to do some lifeguard training, and they'll tell the general counselors to meet in the dining hall for some emotional awareness training, and then after that they'll bring everyone together, and you'll play a game that is intended to get you to know everyone, maybe tell a little bit about yourself. A lot of costumes, a lot of silliness, really they're trying to get you prepared for the things that you're going to do with campers. So like we had a social, which is basically like a dance party. That is one of the kids' favorite activities. And so during staff training, we had a staff social of like, hey, this is what a social is going to look like. This is, what we do. But really, we dance for like 2 hours. So yeah, it's a mix of training sessions and kind of dress rehearsals for things you'll do at camp. And yeah, you're just in this environment with, 25 to 100 other people your age that you don't know them, they don't know you, and it's just a lot of fun to kind of get to know each other in such a small atmosphere.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay. What age group do you think would be the best to stay within the cabins? So I know that's like a personal preference question as well, but
it's definitely a personal preference. For most of my 2 summers, I had the oldest kind of kids on camp. So I was like 15 to 16-year-olds. So if I could personally pick and choose, I'd have the 14 to 16-year-olds, because it just felt like a cabin of dudes, and I was just kind of their big brother kind of thing. But a lot of my friends loved having the younger kids too, because it's a very different dynamic having 9 to 10-year-olds compared to the 15-year-old kids. I would say definitely personal preference. Speak to your camp directors once you get there and just see what they've got planned for you in terms, like the kind of cabins they're going to put you in, and just let them know what you're more comfortable with. Like you aren't going to be kind of promised or guaranteed the kind of age group that you want, but chat to your camp directors, let them know what you're looking for. I'm sure they'll do their best to kind of, put you in like an age group that is going to be good for you. Yeah. But yeah, I would just say whatever age group you get, just enjoy it. Like for my second summer during the kickoff camp was like a 5-day camp. I had like kind of 10, 8 to 9 year olds, which is not what I'm used to. I had like two brothers, 8 years old. These two kids hated each other. It was just kind of, it was a big lesson to learn about how to, you know, handle that kind of age. I loved it, but it was hard. But yeah, just enjoy it, make the most of it. And I'm sure you'll be fine with what
I would just add on that. That's kind of part of staff training too. You know, there's going to be a session where you talk about the differences in the age groups and like how you manage your group of 8-year-olds versus, you know, how you could conflict resolution for different ages is different. So you'll go over that in staff training. You'll get an idea of the age groups. And like Ben said, you might not necessarily get exactly the age group you ask for, but you're going to have a great time regardless.
Yeah.
And I would just add on to that, trust your camp director. So when I went to camp, I was the guy who said, I want to be with the youngest kids. Like I want the 7 and 8 year olds. That's where I should be. They're going to be the most fun. I don't want grumpy teenagers. Give me the little guys. And they did not. they put me in the cabin with the oldest boys, and I was a little bit bummed about that, but very quickly I realized they were right. I'm a way better counselor for teenagers than I would have been for the younger group. So yeah, I mean, think about it in terms of what you want and where you think you'd be a good fit, but like definitely trust your camp directors. They know these campers. They're going to try to get to know you as well as they can in that first week, and they'll do a really good job putting you in a cabin that you're a good fit for.
Yeah. Okay, so we have about 2 minutes left on our time. I do see 2 other questions. If we don't get to both, we can email, or maybe we'll just touch base via email for these.
Sure.
Yeah, either works. Cool.
Well, I would say quickly, Mark asked about going into the city on time off. For example, he's going to Georgia, would love to go to Atlanta. Just quickly check how far it is from Atlanta on a map. The US is a lot bigger than you think. It might not be day trip distance, but if it is day trip distance, then you probably will have time to go there on your full day off.
And we're also very envious of y'all's trains.
We do not have that.
We do not have trains. Unless you're in the Northeast, you can take some trains to some places. But unfortunately, the Southeast region of the US has very limited train availability.
Yeah, it's most likely going to be like a Greyhound bus job. That's how I get around the US a lot of the time where there's no trains available. Buses are great to get around with, like as Christine says, trains are few and far between. So yeah, buses are a good way to go. Cool. So we've got around 30 seconds left. So that's going to be us done. Thank you for coming. I've really enjoyed this. It's been a great experience to do. If you do have any questions at all, as usual, reach out to us. WhatsApp, email, give me a call, or, you know, reach out to anyone who you're in touch with at InterExchange. And have a great summer. Like, you know,
Yep.
Camp's a magic experience. Make the most of it. And yeah, we'll hopefully hear from you guys soon.
Have a good summer, everybody.
Thanks.
See you guys. Take care.